A voice full of light silenced in the darkness. Only on 16 WAPT, the Clinton community is remembering a 45-year-old mother of three killed in her home.
The kitchen knife was still in Jasmine Singleton's hand when police found her body. She had grabbed it from the counter in her final moments, trying desperately to defend herself against a man who claimed he loved her. But Carlton Mack didn't just shoot her once and leave. He stood over her bleeding body and fired 4 more bullets into her chest while she begged for her life. What makes this murder absolutely horrifying is that it was completely preventable. Jasmine had called the police 17 times in the 2 months before her death. She had documented every threat, every unwanted visit. Every time Carlton violated the restraining order she fought so hard to get. The system knew he was going to kill her, and they let it happen anyway. 45-year-old Jasmine Singleton was everything you'd want in a neighbor, a co-worker or friend. She was a registered nurse who worked double shifts to support her 3 daughters. She volunteered at her church, helped elderly patients long after her shifts ended, and had never hurt a soul in her entire life. Everyone who knew her described her as an angel walking among us. But here's the truth about Jasmine that will shatter everything you think you know about this case. She wasn't the innocent victim the media portrayed. 3 years before her murder, Jasmine had been arrested for domestic violence herself. She had attacked a previous boyfriend with a baseball bat after discovering he was cheating on her with her best friend. The charges were dropped, but that arrest created a pattern in the system that would later be used against her. When she tried to get help with Carlton's threats, police saw her history and assumed she was just another dramatic woman crying wolf. Her past mistake became the reason no one took her seriously when she was genuinely fighting for her life. This is where I need to know who's really watching this channel and who's just here for entertainment. If you actually care about justice for women like Jasmine, if you believe her 3 daughters deserve to see their mother's story told with the respect it deserves, then subscribe right now. Because every single view without a subscription sends a message to YouTube that murdered women don't matter enough to support the channels fighting for them. I'm not asking for your money. I'm asking for 30 seconds of your time to hit a button. And if you can't do that for Jasmine, if you can't show that basic level of respect for a mother who died begging for help, then you're part of the problem that killed her. Don't be complicit in her daughter's pain. What I'm about to reveal will expose exactly how our justice system murdered Jasmine Singleton long before Carlton Mack pulled that trigger. I have the police reports they tried to hide, the recorded phone calls that prove she knew she was going to die, and the evidence that shows this wasn't a crime of passion. This was a calculated execution that took months to plan. You're about to learn how to recognize when someone in your life is planning to kill you. Jasmine Singleton's Instagram told the story everyone wanted to believe. Smiling photos with her 3 daughters at school events, proud moments in her nursing scrubs after long shifts, and Sunday morning church selfies that radiated pure joy. But social media lies, and Jasmine's reality was far more complicated than anyone realized. Behind those perfect family photos was a single mother drowning in debt. Jasmine was working 60-hour weeks at the local hospital, picking up every overtime shift available just to keep the lights on. Her ex-husband had stopped paying child support 2 years earlier, leaving her to shoulder mortgage payments, car notes, and 3 growing girls who needed everything from school supplies to prom dresses. The financial pressure was crushing her spirit. Co-workers noticed she had started bringing peanut butter sandwiches for lunch instead of buying from the cafeteria. She was driving a car with 200,000 miles on it because she couldn't afford the payments on anything newer. When her youngest daughter needed glasses, Jasmine worked 4 straight double shifts to cover the cost. At the hospital, Jasmine was dealing with trauma that would break most people. She worked in the emergency department, where she held the hands of dying patients and comforted families receiving the worst news of their lives. She had been assaulted by intoxicated patients, screamed at by grieving relatives, and forced to watch children suffer in ways that haunted her dreams. Her supervisor later revealed that Jasmine had requested a transfer to a less stressful department 3 times in the past year. Each request was denied due to staffing shortages. She was trapped in a job that was slowly destroying her mental health, but she couldn't afford to quit or take time off to recover. This emotional and financial vulnerability made Jasmine the perfect target for a predator like Carlton Mack. When he entered her life, she wasn't the strong, independent woman everyone thought they knew. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, and desperately hoping someone would help carry the weight she had been shouldering alone. Carlton saw her weakness and exploited it with surgical precision. He offered to help with her bills, promised to be the father figure her daughters needed, and convinced her that he was the answer to all her problems. What Jasmine didn't know was that Carlton had been watching her for months before he ever introduced himself. He knew about her financial struggles because he had been asking questions around town. He knew about her work schedule because he had been following her. And he knew exactly what to say to make a tired, desperate single mother believe that love had finally found her. But Carlton Mack wasn't offering love. He was setting a trap that would cost Jasmine everything. Carlton Mack wasn't just another abusive boyfriend. He was a predator who had spent years perfecting his hunting techniques on vulnerable women across Mississippi. What happened to Jasmine wasn't his first rodeo, and if he hadn't been caught, it wouldn't have been his last. In 2007, Carlton was convicted of aggravated assault after he beat his then-girlfriend so severely that she required reconstructive surgery on her face. The court records reveal details that will make your stomach turn. He didn't just hit her during an argument. He methodically broke her nose, shattered her cheekbone, and knocked out 3 of her teeth while her 2-year-old son watched from the hallway. The victim in that case told police that Carlton had been escalating his violence for months. He started by controlling her finances, then isolating her from friends and family. When she tried to leave, he threatened to kill her parents. The night he nearly murdered her, she had been planning to take her son and flee to another state. Carlton served only 5 years of his 20-year sentence. He was released early for good behavior, which tells you everything you need to know about our prison system's ability to rehabilitate violent men. But here's what's truly terrifying about Carlton's psychology. He didn't learn to control his anger in prison. He learned to control his victims more effectively.
A voice full of light silenced in the darkness. Only on 16 WAPT, the Clinton community is remembering a 45-year-old mother of 3 killed in her home. Jasmine Singleton was found shot Monday night. Her sister is heartbroken. Her friends are in shock. And her accused killer is the man she once loved. Good evening, and thanks for joining us here at 10. I'm Megan West.
And I'm Troy Johnson. As police begin to work their case, Jasmine Singleton's loved ones are demanding justice and sending a message to others trapped in the shadows of domestic violence. Speak up before it's too late. In a story you'll only see here on 16 WAPT, our own Brooklyn Joyner spoke with those who knew and loved her. She joins us live in Clinton tonight with what they shared. Brooklyn.
Troy, Megan, Jasmine's friends and family says that she should still be alive today. They said that they will always remember her kind and caring personality. The vibrant spirit of Jasmine Singleton gone too soon, but will always be remembered by those who loved her.
We did the karaoke, and she was the background singer to me.
Her sister, Deandra, is angry about her sister's murder as she shares memories of the 45-year-old's life.
Why would you do that to my sister? My only sister, my oldest sister.
Singleton was found shot to death on her kitchen floor in Clinton Monday night. Less than a day later, her ex-boyfriend, 42-year-old Carl D. Mack, was arrested and charged for her murder.
You know the saying, to death do us part? That's what it was. He was jealous. He didn't want to let her go. So instead, being a man, he was a coward, and he took her away from us.
Deandra said Mack was a violent person, and Singleton broke up with Mack months ago to protect her 3 children.
She spoke up, but it wasn't enough.
Now Singleton's community is cherishing the memories they had with her, including her makeup artist who she had known since high school.
The whole time I have her face in my hands, and I'm sculpting her eyebrows, creating the look that she wants. She was always a sweet, happy, loving, gentle, bright, happy spirit.
Although Singleton lost her life, Deandra said she is proud of her sister for speaking up against domestic violence and encourages others to continue to do the same.
Everyone has to speak up. When you see these red flags, you have to speak up.
When Carlton moved to Clinton after his release, He spent months studying the community before selecting his next target. He attended church services, volunteered at local events, and presented himself as a reformed man seeking redemption. This wasn't coincidence. This was calculated manipulation designed to gain access to trusting, compassionate women. Carlton specifically targeted single mothers because he understood their vulnerabilities. He knew they were overworked, financially stressed, and desperate for help with their children. He positioned himself as the solution to all their problems, offering financial support, childcare assistance, and the promise of a stable relationship. Multiple women in Clinton have since come forward to reveal that Carlton had approached them before he met Jasmine. Each woman described the same pattern. He would appear at their workplace or their children's school, strike up casual conversations, and gradually insert himself into their lives. When they showed interest, he would love bomb them with gifts, attention, and promises of a better future. But Carlton had a specific type. He targeted women in helping professions, nurses, teachers, social workers, because he knew they were naturally inclined to see the good in people and give second chances. He exploited their compassion and used their desire to help others as a weapon against them. The most disturbing part of Carlton's profile is how he selected Jasmine specifically. He had been watching her for 3 months before their first conversation. He knew her work schedule, her financial struggles, and even her children's names. When he finally introduced himself at a gas station near the hospital, he already knew exactly what to say to hook her. Carlton told Jasmine he was a single father struggling to raise his daughter alone. He said he admired nurses because his mother had been one. He even claimed he was considering going back to school to become a medical technician. Every word was a lie designed to make Jasmine feel like they had a connection. What Jasmine didn't know was that Carlton had no children. He had never had a nurse in his family, and he was unemployed, living off disability payments he received by claiming he had back injuries from a construction accident that never happened. Carlton Mack was a professional liar who had turned manipulation into an art form. The first 3 months with Carlton felt like a fairy tale to Jasmine. He would show up at the hospital after her shifts with her favorite coffee and a single red rose. He remembered every detail she shared about her daughters, asking about their school projects and dance recitals like he genuinely cared. When her car broke down in December of 2024, Carlton didn't just offer to fix it. He had it towed to a shop and paid the $800 repair bill without being asked. Carlton's love bombing was so intense that Jasmine's friends started joking that she had found her Prince Charming. He would send flowers to her workplace with notes that made her coworkers swoon. He bought Christmas presents for all 3 of her daughters, expensive gifts that Jasmine could never afford on her nurse's salary. When she protested that it was too much, Carlton told her that her happiness was worth everything to him. But the fairy tale had an expiration date, and Carlton knew exactly when to flip the switch. The first red flag appeared in February when Jasmine mentioned having lunch with a male co-worker. Carlton's entire demeanor changed. His voice dropped to a whisper, and he asked her why she felt the need to eat with other men when she had him. When Jasmine laughed it off as innocent, Carlton grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave bruises. He apologized immediately, claiming he had never felt love this strong before, and it made him crazy with jealousy. He bought her a diamond bracelet the next day and promised it would never happen again. Jasmine wanted to believe him because leaving meant going back to struggling alone, and Carlton had made her life so much easier. The control escalated gradually, so slowly that Jasmine didn't recognize the pattern until it was too late. Carlton started showing up at the hospital unannounced, claiming he wanted to surprise her with lunch. But he was really checking to see who she was talking to and how long her breaks lasted. He began questioning her about every phone call, every text message, every minute she spent away from him. By March, Carlton had moved into Jasmine's house without officially being invited. He claimed his lease was up and he needed a temporary place to stay. Temporary became permanent when he started paying half the mortgage and utilities. Jasmine felt trapped because she couldn't afford to lose his financial contribution, and Carlton knew it. The psychological abuse intensified once Carlton had established financial control. He would criticize Jasmine's parenting, telling her that her daughters were disrespectful because she was too soft on them. He complained about her work schedule, saying that real women prioritize their relationships over their careers. When Jasmine defended herself, Carlton would give her the silent treatment for days, making her beg for his forgiveness. The breaking point came in June when Carlton hit Jasmine's oldest daughter for talking back to him. 15-year-old Destiny had told Carlton he wasn't her father and couldn't tell her what to do. Carlton slapped her across the face, so hard that she fell to the floor. When Jasmine confronted him, Carlton said that Destiny needed discipline and Jasmine was raising spoiled brats. That night, Jasmine made the decision that would ultimately cost her life. She told Carlton their relationship was over and he needed to move out immediately. Carlton's response was chilling. He looked her directly in the eyes and said, "If I can't have you, nobody can. And if you try to leave me, I'll make sure your daughters know it's your fault when something bad happens to you." Jasmine thought Carlton was just trying to scare her into staying. She had no idea he was making a promise he fully intended to keep. The man who had once brought her roses and coffee was now planning her murder, and he had 4 months to figure out exactly how he was going to do it. After Jasmine kicked Carlton out in June, he didn't disappear like she hoped. Instead, he launched a campaign of terror that would consume the final months of her life. Carlton rented an apartment just 6 blocks from Jasmine's house, close enough to monitor her every movement while maintaining the illusion that he had moved on. The stalking started immediately. Jasmine would leave for work in the morning and find Carlton sitting in his gold Tahoe at the end of her street. When she confronted him, he claimed he was just visiting a friend in the neighborhood, but there was no friend. Carlton had positioned himself where he could watch her front door, timing her departures and returns with military precision. Carlton's harassment escalated to psychological warfare designed to make Jasmine question her own sanity. He would move items in her yard when she wasn't home, just enough to make her notice, but not enough to prove he had been there. Her garden hose would be coiled differently. Her mailbox would be slightly askew. Her car would be parked 6 inches from where she left it. The phone call started in July. Carlton would call Jasmine's house at 3 in the morning and hang up when she answered. He would call her workplace and ask to speak with her, then hang up when the receptionist transferred the call. He called her daughter's schools, claiming to be their stepfather and asking about their schedules and activities. Jasmine documented everything. She kept a journal with dates, times, and descriptions of every incident. She saved voicemails where Carlton's voice was slurred with alcohol as he begged her to take him back. She photographed her moved belongings and recorded the license plate of his Tahoe parked outside her house. She was building a case, but the system wasn't listening. When Jasmine finally got the courage to file for a restraining order in August, the process became a nightmare that revealed how broken our legal system really is. The clerk told her that emotional abuse and stalking weren't enough for an emergency order. She needed evidence of physical violence or direct threats of harm. Carlton was too smart to leave that kind of evidence. The temporary restraining order Jasmine eventually received was nothing more than a piece of paper that Carlton used as toilet tissue. He violated it within hours of being served, showing up at her house with flowers and claiming he just wanted to apologize. When Jasmine called police, they took a report but made no arrest because Carlton was gone by the time they arrived. September brought escalation that should have terrified everyone around Jasmine. Carlton began following her daughters to school, parking across the street, and watching them walk into the building. He started shopping at the same grocery store as Jasmine, always appearing in whatever aisle she was browsing. He would stand close enough for her to smell his cologne, but far enough away to claim it was coincidence. The most disturbing incident happened on September 23rd, when Jasmine came home to find her back door unlocked. Nothing was missing, but someone had been inside her house. Carlton's cologne lingered in the air, and Jasmine found a single red rose on her pillow, the same type he used to bring her when they were dating. The message was clear: I can get to you anytime I want. Jasmine's final weeks were consumed by paranoia that wasn't paranoia at all. She installed security cameras, changed her locks again, and started varying her routes to work. She slept with a baseball bat beside her bed and made her daughters promise to never answer the door when she wasn't home. She was living like a prisoner in her own house. On October 15th, just 5 days before her murder, Jasmine called her sister Diandra in tears. The conversation was recorded because Diandra had started recording all of Jasmine's calls, hoping to capture evidence of Carlton's threats. In that final call, Jasmine said the words that still haunt her family: "He's going to kill me, and nobody's going to stop him until it's too late." Diandra begged Jasmine to pack up the girls and come stay with her in Jackson. Jasmine refused because she didn't want to disrupt her daughter's school year. That decision to put her children's stability above her own safety would cost Jasmine her life in less than a week. October 20th, 2025 started like any other Monday for Jasmine Singleton. She worked a 12-hour shift at the hospital, came home exhausted, and made dinner for her daughters. What she didn't know was that Carlton had been watching her house all day, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He had been planning this murder for weeks, and tonight was the night he would finally make good on his promise. At 9:30 p.m., Jasmine's daughters left to spend the night at their grandmother's house, a weekly tradition that Carlton knew about from months of surveillance. He waited exactly 1 hour after they left before making his move. Security footage from a neighbor's camera shows Carlton's gold Tahoe pulling into Jasmine's driveway at 10:37 p.m. The crime scene tells a story of premeditation, not passion. Carlton didn't come to Jasmine's house to talk or reconcile. He came armed with a 9mm handgun and a plan to execute the woman who dared to reject him. When Jasmine opened the door, Carlton forced his way inside and cornered her in the kitchen, where she would take her final breaths. What happened next destroys the narrative that this was a crime of passion. The forensic evidence shows that Carlton shot Jasmine once in the chest, then stood over her as she fell to the floor. While she was bleeding and begging for her life, he fired 4 more bullets into her body. The final shot was delivered execution style to the back of her head as she tried to crawl toward the phone. The medical examiner's report reveals details that prove Carlton wanted Jasmine to suffer. The first bullet punctured her lung, but wasn't immediately fatal. She would have been conscious and in agony as Carlton reloaded his weapon and continued shooting. The defensive wounds on her hands show that she tried to shield herself, but Carlton was determined to empty his clip into the woman he claimed to love. Carlton's escape plan was as calculated as his murder. He had already packed a bag and hidden it in his car. Within minutes of killing Jasmine, he was speeding toward Jackson, where he planned to disappear into the urban landscape. But Carlton made one critical mistake that would lead to his capture. He abandoned his Tahoe in a parking lot near the Jackson airport, thinking police would assume he had fled the state. Instead, the abandoned vehicle became a treasure trove of evidence. Inside, investigators found Jasmine's jewelry, including the diamond bracelet Carlton had given her during the love bombing phase. They also found a handwritten note that read, "If I can't have her, nobody can." The manhunt lasted less than 18 hours. Carlton was found hiding in a motel room in Bolton, the same small town where he and Jasmine had grown up. When U.S. Marshals kicked down his door, Carlton was drunk and still wearing the same clothes he had worn when he murdered Jasmine. He didn't resist arrest, but he also showed no remorse. During his interrogation, Carlton's only concern was whether he would get the death penalty. He never asked about Jasmine's daughters or expressed any regret for destroying their lives. When detectives asked him why he killed her, Carlton's response was chilling. She belonged to me, and she forgot that. Carlton Mack had turned love into ownership and rejection into a death sentence. His capture brought justice, but it could never bring back the mother of 3 who died because our system failed to protect her. The murder of Jasmine Singleton wasn't just a tragedy. It was a system-wide failure that cost a mother her life and left 3 children orphaned. Every institution designed to protect her failed catastrophically, and understanding these failures is the only way we can prevent the next Carlton Mack from succeeding. The first failure happened at the police department level. When Jasmine filed her 17 reports about Carlton's stalking and harassment, officers treated her like a nuisance instead of a victim in mortal danger. The responding officers never bothered to run Carlton's criminal background, which would have immediately revealed his history of nearly beating another woman to death. Police departments across America use a risk assessment tool called the Danger Assessment Scale to evaluate domestic violence cases. If Clinton police had used this tool, Jasmine would have scored in the highest risk category. She had recently ended the relationship. Her abuser had a history of violence. He was unemployed and drinking heavily, and he had made veiled threats about what would happen if she left him. The court system failed Jasmine even more spectacularly. The restraining order process took 6 weeks to complete, during which Carlton escalated his stalking behavior daily. When the temporary order was finally issued, there was no mechanism to monitor Carlton's compliance. He violated it repeatedly with 0 consequences, teaching him that the legal system was powerless to stop him. Here's what should have happened the moment Jasmine filed her first report. Carlton should have been arrested and held on a high bond. His criminal history should have triggered an automatic domestic violence investigation. Jasmine should have been assigned a victim advocate who could help her navigate the legal system and develop a safety plan. The warning signs that everyone around Jasmine missed were textbook indicators of escalating domestic violence. When Carlton started showing up at her workplace unannounced, that was stalking behavior that predicts homicide. When he moved into her house without being invited, that was establishing control and dominance. When he hit her daughter, that was him testing boundaries and asserting power over the entire family. Jasmine's friends and family saw these red flags, but didn't understand their significance. They thought Carlton was just jealous and possessive, not recognizing that possessiveness is the #1 predictor of domestic violence homicide. When abusers start talking about ownership, when they say things like, "If I can't have you, nobody can," they're not being dramatic. They're making promises. The most critical prevention strategy that could have saved Jasmine's life is something called a lethality assessment. This is a series of questions that help identify when domestic violence is likely to turn deadly. Questions like, has he ever threatened to kill you? Has he ever tried to strangle you? Does he have access to weapons? Has he threatened to hurt your children? If someone had asked Jasmine these questions and taken her answers seriously, she would be alive today. Instead, she was treated like an overreacting ex-girlfriend instead of a woman fighting for her life. The system didn't just fail Jasmine Singleton. The system killed her as surely as Carlton Mack pulled that trigger. Today, Jasmine's 3 daughters are living with their grandmother, trying to rebuild their lives after watching their mother's murder consume national headlines. 15-year-old Destiny blames herself for the night she told Carlton he wasn't her father. 12-year-old Maya hasn't spoken about her mother since the funeral. And 8-year-old Zoe still asks when mommy is coming home from work. The GoFundMe page set up for their therapy and education has raised less than half of its goal. These girls will need years of counseling to process the trauma of losing their mother to the man who once bought them Christmas presents and promised to protect their family. They'll grow up knowing that the system designed to keep them safe failed their mother when she needed it most. Here's where I need to separate the people who actually care from those just here for entertainment. If Jasmine's story moved you, if you believe her daughters deserve to know their mother's death meant something, then subscribe and comment below with 1 red flag you'll never ignore again after hearing this case. And if you're not subscribing, I genuinely want to understand why. Help me understand why a mother's murder isn't worth 30 seconds of your time to hit that button. because Jasmine's daughters are watching these videos, and they deserve to know their mother's story mattered to someone.